Hello everybody, my name is Marlowe and welcome back to another episode of Minecraft Survival, where today we are going to be doing a world tour for episode 25. I've decided in this series I'm going to try do a world tour episode every 25 episodes. I think that's a really good point of not having too many of them but not too little, so I'm able to catch you guys up if you haven't seen every episode and you can see what we've done in the world in those 25 episodes. So I would say maybe 95% of everything I've built in this world is made in this general area, which is a good thing and a bad thing. A bad thing because I could probably just kind of take a step back over here, show you this area and say, this is my world. There you go, video done. But of course I'm not going to do that. Instead, and this is why it's a good thing, we're able to actually kind of go inside of every building and check them out one at a time in a bit more detail, which I obviously won't be able to do by episode 50 because we would have made, well, twice as much. I did do a little bit of preparation for the world tour today by finishing up this part of the mountain. As you can see, it looks a little bit different. The first thing I did was add in this wooden walkway, getting us down this steep cliff part of the mountain so it's a little bit easier to descend. I then added in all of our stone pathways to connect up the builds, and last but not least, I built all of these custom trees, which always takes a little bit of time, but it's 100% worth it each time I do it, because this looks a whole lot better than it did before. I should also mention this side of the mountain might look slightly different to this side that we already had finished, and I think that's for two reasons. One is because the trees aren't actually covered in snow, which I think makes them look a lot better. We haven't had any snow since I built them, that's the main reason why. I'm not going to go around and place snow layers on top of them, of course. And there's also not quite as many trees. I've left a couple of open spots for buildings that I may want to add at some point in time, like over here for example. But that's not what we're going to be doing today because we have a world tour to complete, and we're actually going to be doing this world tour in chronological order, or at least as best I can. So the very first thing that I would like to show you is not this bridge I'm currently walking on, but in fact my starter home over here, which is a rather unique starter home. Not many builds look like this as the first one that people do in their world. We actually made this in episode 2, not episode 1. I didn't have the time to do it during the first episode. I was too busy gearing up, but it's quite empty on the inside here now, obviously because I moved a lot of my stuff. We do still have my mending villager here at the top, which I can get a mending book for 4 emeralds, which is not too shabby at all. But yes, this is my old storage room. It's completely empty now because, as I said, I moved over to my proper survival base, which we'll get to a little bit later. I actually spent a really long time in my creative test building world making this starter house, and I wanted the first build in this world to be a special one and something a little bit different. Like we have a crane out the front here, which is a bit peculiar, a greenhouse with a moss roof, and everything is just a bit weird and wacky about it. The block palette seems never ending. It's a quirky one, but yeah, I really love it. It's definitely one of my favorite builds in this world. The next thing we made in episode 3 was our mega bridge here, which I believe was all made with iron tools. I didn't think I had diamond at that point in time, although I could be wrong. Regardless, gathering all of this wood, chopping down all of those trees, took a pretty long time, but I'm really glad I did it because I love this bridge and it makes for a great way to walk over from that side of the mountain over to my starter base here. I can't remember if it was in the same episode or possibly the next one, but we made a skeleton XP farm down here underground in this cave, which is just down this hole here. It's a very simple thing. It's basically just a room for skeletons to spawn in, bubble column down into the drop where I can one punch hit them and they die, and all of their drops go into here. I don't have much use for this anymore. And that is for two reasons. One is because fairly recently we made an Enderman XP farm, so I don't really need it for XP anymore. And we also, not long after building the skeleton farm, built this mob farm right here, which has all sorts of drops, gunpowder, bones, zombie flesh, string, and arrows, more than I know what to do with, honestly. It was a design from Shulkercraft, super easy to build. I know it looks massive and really intimidating, but honestly, Takes like no time at all, and it's really worth it because, as you can see right here, you get tons and tons of drops. As I said, kind of more than I know what to do with. Bearing in mind you don't blow it up, then, oh well, I lose it all if you do that. So let's not friend, hey? How about that? It was then in episode 5 where we decided to turn things up a gear and build my survival base right at the top and peak of the mountain here. And I love this build. It took quite a long time designing, as you can imagine, then obviously gathering all of the resources and building it. To do all of that in episode 5 was no meager task at all. It took a long time, I can tell you that for sure, but I'm so happy with how it turned out. I actually kind of recently on my channel made a video talking about my personal top 10 favorite builds I've ever made in this game, and to no surprise, this was number 1. It's big, it's bold, it's beautiful, and it's grand, and it's glorious too. All of the wacky block choices and the unique shapes, it all just came together so perfectly. I could not be happier with this base. And in that same episode, I also did the interior, which I'm almost just as proud of. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's kind of got everything I need without doing too much. So over here, by the way, this is Clifford. He's a very good boy. I think we actually got him in one of the first episodes, but this is his spot. He hangs out on the balcony round here. This is kind of like the middle section. There's nothing really of use in this level, but if we go down underneath, this is my storage room where I still have extra chests ready to store more items if need be. Perfect size for me personally. Don't need it any bigger, but certainly would not want it any smaller. On this middle section here is my super smelter, quote unquote super. It's not very big. I actually have a much larger one in my world now, but at the time it was very helpful. And then the top floor here is my bedroom with just about the loveliest view you could ever get in this game. Before we continue with the world tour, I just super quickly want to mention that there is in fact going to be a world download for those of you who are YouTube members or Twitch subscribers. It's going to be on the usual place in the Discord server. So yeah, if you're a YouTube member or Twitch sub, you can get your hands on this world and have a look around for yourself. And I will also mention this because I know some of you will be wondering why I'm not doing a public world download. I would love to give all of you access to this world, but unfortunately in the past I've had far too many experiences with people basically using my world downloads to take my builds and upload content pretending that it's, you know, them that's done all of it. It's just a super simple way for people to gain access to all of my builds and basically claim it as their own, which, as you can imagine, is quite frustrating. So ever since I had all of those problems in the past, I don't do public world downloads anymore. So to any of you who want this world but can't access it for any reason, I apologize, but that's kind of just the way it is. Anyway, continuing on, the next thing I have to show you is the observatory here, which I think is, minus the balloon house, the tallest build in this world, right at the top of the mountain here, so we can gaze upon the stars. But this build actually has some sort of utility, kind of. It stores the map of this world, which actually could do with an update. We haven't popped this up in a little while, so let me just do that and I can show you the updated version. I do like to do this every time we update the map, so here is the before and here is the after. I think really the only thing that's changed is the mining area down the bottom here, which is just out there, which we'll check out later, and also the little bit of landscaping we've done in this area, which you can actually see because there's not snow covering all of the trees like there is over here. But still, pretty cool map. I like seeing this thing get updated. In the next episode, we built the XP machine over here, which doesn't really work anymore. I've kind of given up on it. Basically, there is a cactus farm underground as well as a bamboo farm, and the bamboo comes up this chute, goes into the fuel source part of the furnace, and the cactus goes into the top part, and it's meant to get continuously smelted up. I can then pause the furnace and take out all of the XP that gets smelted up during that process and get a whole bunch at once. It worked well for a while until the flying machine just kind of started breaking all of the time. I can safely say I've never seen bamboo leaves do that before. I think it must be the textures overlaying each other. But this is the bamboo farm. The cactus farms work great. There's nothing that can really go wrong with them. But this one works as a flying machine comes across every night cycle, or at least that's what's supposed to happen. But it just seems to break all the time, and I'm not smart enough with redstone, and especially not with flying machines, that I don't want to have to fix it all the time. So maybe at some point I'll make a new bamboo farm that doesn't need a flying machine, but for right now I'm just kind of leaving it as it is. How the heck did I get in here? Oh yeah, over here. In the next episode, which is episode 8 we're up to now, by the way, we built my honey/bee factory over here, which also doesn't really work anymore. This is just meant to be a factory design. Quite happy with how this build turned out. It's rather unique, which is kind of a theme with all of my builds, to be honest, in this series. Most of you will be aware of that, but in case you're not, I've been trying to just branch out a little bit, use some different block palettes and make some obscure choices. It's been going very well. But yeah, this is my honey factory, and there's actually a honey farm underground, which the honey bottle side of it didn't really work at all, and then I just used it for honeycombs, but I got so many honeycombs that I just kind of turned the farm off and haven't turned it back on. It was simply just too efficient. I didn't need as much as it was actually producing, but it was really cool when it was up and running because you could see all of the drops coming up from the farm through these pipes on into the inside and then down into the storage chests. It was all very immersive in here. I really loved coming into this and just kind of watching the drops fall in. At the moment, I've just got a single honey bottle in this pipe on a continuous loop, so yeah, there's still some stuff to look at, but not much. And also, I completely forgot, there's actually a manual honey bottle farm down underground, which I almost never use, but it's there if I need it. In the next episode, we made my nether portal over here in the side of the mountain, which probably doesn't need that much explaining, to be honest. So yeah, that's my nether portal. Let's move on. In the next episode, we made my villager breeder over here, which is actually in this tower. Haven't checked on this in a while, so I hope everything is in working order. But yeah, that's the actual villager breeder. Just covered it up the top here with a very small tower design. But the way this works is when the babies are bred up, and I'm going to roleplay as a baby villager here once this minecart comes back up, but it will pick them up from the corner, a little bit like this. There we go. So I'm a baby villager. Wow, wow. Where am I going? Down the rail line, and eventually it'll chuck me out at the end here and put me into the pit with the villagers. They've started mutating. That is a funky looking villager. But they kind of just get stored down here until I'm ready to move them elsewhere in the world and give them a purpose. And it was actually in the following episode where I moved one of my villagers over to the next building that we did, which is this watermill here, just underneath our bridge. And I haven't actually moved them into the watermill itself. There is a crop farm underground that they're working away on. But yeah, this is my watermill. Kind of happy with this build, to be honest. It's one of my favorites in this world for sure. I love the orange roof there. I think it looks great next to the jungle and all of the dark oak, as well as the tuff on the tower. Again, bit of a funky build with a big old water wheel here, which is powered by a waterfall starting at the top of the mountain, which is kind of cool. And on the inside, on the bottom level here, we kind of have the wheat processing area where we turn this into bread, I guess. And then over here is actually the storage for all of my wheat, which is nearly full. Okay, I might have to empty the seeds at some point in time. We can then go up to the second level here, which is kind of like the villager or whoever would be working inside of here, their bedroom, just a nice little bedroom design. And then I can't actually remember what's on this top level here. Just storage, apparently. Yeah, just some storage. I'll be honest, I don't know why I'm keeping these seeds. I don't think I'm ever going to have a use for them, but I feel like that's just too many items to chuck away at once and never see again, so I'm going to store them inside a shulker box. The next build we made was my iron blacksmith over here, which actually has an iron farm underground. Not a massive one, but enough to get some amount of ingots just to kind of tie me over to not need to go mining for iron, which is always very helpful. But Yeah, I like this building. The block palette is a little bit different to everything else we've done in this area. It's kind of a little bit darker, if that's the right word, maybe duller. I'm not sure. More grungy. Yeah, I think that's the best way to explain it. It's a more grungy build. It kind of stands out, but not too much. I really like it. It's a cool addition to the area here. In the next episode, we built my lookout point at the top of this mountain right here with a spiral staircase wrapping around the peak, leading all the way up to this platform here, which you can stand on and kind of look out over our base here, which is really nice to do from time to time. And we also built this hoglin farm to get ourselves a nice supply of cooked pork chops as well as leather. Currently, there's no cooked pork chops, just leather. I must have taken it all. In episode 14, we built this greenhouse over here, which has yet another farm underneath, which is in fact a sugarcane farm. Yet another one that I haven't checked on in a while, so this is probably like getting on to nearly be overflowing. Yes, it's getting close. But yeah, we got a sugarcane farm underground, and here is my greenhouse. Quite a nice luscious interior here. I do quite like this, and the exterior is kind of cool in itself. Greenhouses aren't usually that shape, so I thought this was a bit different to the usual. In the next episode, we made a train station over here, and then a couple of episodes later, we actually connected it to a rail line, which goes pretty much around half of my base here. We'll ride it in a second, but on the inside, we have a floating goat. We have another map that needs more updating, and up on the top level here, we actually have another rail line, which doesn't lead anywhere, but it does come from the place I get my villagers from. So just behind this corner right here is actually the holding pen for the villagers. So that's what this leads to. And then on the next level up is basically just a lookout point. We've already stood on it multiple times today, but this is just kind of like a nice spot to get another good overview of our area here. I feel like I have to ride the rail and show you guys the routes. It does take nearly 2 minutes though, I think, so we're gonna, speed this up a little bit. So enjoy this very quick rail ride. And then the final stretch is through this tunnel, leading us all the way back round to the train station once again. So as I said, we built the rail line 2 episodes after the train station, and there were a couple of builds we did in between those two. One of those was in fact this Guardian farm, which is designed by Logical Geek Boy. It produces a whole ton of Guardian drops, which isn't really that difficult to build. I opened up a bad chest then. No, there's a lot more in here, as well as ink sacs, so I'm able to craft a lot of dark prismarine because of this, as well as sea lanterns, which is really, really helpful. And fun little fact about this world, that right there is actually where I spawned in to this world. The other build we did before the rail line was my super smelter building over here, which is another one of my personal favorites. As you can see, we got a minecart taking a rail all the way around the outside of the build and actually goes inside. Such a cool feature. Unfortunately, the minecart stops like most times I unload the chunks, so I have to kind of propel it from time to time. But yeah, I love this build. It's very, very steampunk inspired, like quite a lot of my builds in this world, but this one especially. There's quite a lot of pipes going on and windmills and cogs and goodness knows what else. It's really, really quite a fun build. But yeah, this is my super smelter building. The super smelter is actually underground. It's where these minecarts lead to, of course. So the interior here is really all cosmetic. But we do actually, when the items get smelted up, they come up this bubble column, and you can actually see them kind of go along the water streams here and up through this pipe into the storage chest here. So that's always really a lot of fun whenever I'm smelting up items. The next thing we started work on was the mining operation over here, and of course we didn't do all of this in a single episode. We actually just started with the ore sorter building, And I think the best way to kind of showcase this whole area is to do it all in once. So we're going to kind of scrap the chronological order thing, and I'll show you all of this, and then afterwards I can go around and show you the few other things we have in this world that were kind of made in the process during the episodes whilst we were doing everything over here. So I should probably say this is most certainly a work in progress. We are not done on the top level here. There's still quite a lot left to build, but we have done all of the main buildings. So we'll start off here with the ore sorter. So the ores actually get brought up from the bottom of the mining operation down there, which we'll go and check out shortly. But they're brought up through this crane lift system, and they're conveyor belted inside the building, where they're then sorted into 4 different sections. One is for emeralds and diamonds, another one for coal, another one for lapis and redstone and lapis, I always seem to mix those up, and another for the remaining 3 ores, iron, copper and gold. And then they're sent off in 4 separate directions via these rail lines that we have built for all of them, which aren't exactly functional. They're basically made out of trapdoors entirely, so it just doesn't really work very well. But the first one goes off to, let's head to the coal building here. They're just kind of dumped off, piled up, sent onto another conveyor belt, where then they fall into the coal grinder. They're all kind of separated away from the stone, and then they can be tested in the furnaces over there, kind of refined a little bit, and then sent off to somewhere else. Over here we have the iron, copper and gold building, which I think is my favorite. It's just a really cool designed building. I'm very happy with it, but it's kind of a similar situation, right? They fall into the grinder over here, and they're kind of smelted up and then refined into something else, and so on and so forth. That's kind of the whole point of this area here. All of the buildings are refining the ores, which are then, by the way, stored in that warehouse over there. But before we take a look at that, let's have a look at the diamond and emerald building, which is kind of got a bit of a process. So here we have a very rare block, a regular diamond ore block, which are very hard to find. I've only found 4 of these in my world, but they're once again grinded away from their stone, kind of molded into a bit of a shape here, and then they can be polished on the polisher over here in the corner. And then the last refinery building over here is for the redstone and lapis, and we're actually kind of pretending lapis. Oh, every time I cannot say redstone and lapis without messing it up. But we're kind of pretending they're a liquid, right? So they're being refined into their liquid form and being stored in these big underground vats. We've used the glass trick there to make it look like it's a really deeply filled pool of red/blue liquid, so that's kind of cool. And yeah, like I said, all of that gets sent off to the warehouse up here. So this is yet another pretty cool building. Very happy with this one once again. And on the inside is pretty much what you would expect, a bunch of ores being stored up. So we kind of have them just in their crates here, as you can see, piled on up. And we have the lapis and redstone stored in their vats. We used concrete powder this time instead of glass, just looked a little bit better that way. We've also got some cranes and magnets on chains to kind of move around all of the blocks. And then we also have a ledger at the back here, front and center, or back and center I should say, just to kind of keep track of all of the accounts and what's moving in and out of the warehouse. So that is the top level here. We can now head down to the actual mines, which kind of starts on this chain system right here. This is how the miners would actually get down. So it's kind of like a 1-person thing, but this is meant to take them all the way down to this next platform over here, which is kind of like a halfway point. They can stop off at and go down the next one, all the way down to the bottom, which I'm not gonna fall down. I may die. Don't know how good my feather falling boots will be from that height. But yeah, down here is the mining area where the miners can do the digging and collect all of the ores. So not only do we have flaming zombies, but we also have a custom river. So before this, there were just 2 waterfalls kind of just falling into the cave here. I terraformed a lovely river kind of going through this whole area, which I think really completes this entirely. We got some rail lines going into all of the mine shafts to bring them all together to this kind of centralized area, which is where the ores go up on that chain lift system. And then we just got a couple of other fun details like some carts taking storage and that sort of stuff back and forth. We got piles of ores, piles of TNT, which I'm going to stay far away from, and also a little dining area for our miners to take their lunch break on. And we also, as you can see, have a couple of rail lines going across, which I just smacked my head on. Just adds a little bit of extra immersion, I guess, to this whole mining area. It's really cool to look down on and see these rail lines going all the way across. But yeah, that is the mining operation. As I said, still a work in progress, but we are quite close to finishing things off here. I believe there are only 2 more things left to show you in my world. The first one is this hot air balloon house, which is actually where we have a villager stored inside of. Long story short, we had a farmer villager from when this world began, didn't really want to just dispose of him somewhere, so we named him Carl and gave him a hot air balloon house to spend the rest of his life in. He loves it. He tells me every time I come to visit him. And the final thing I have to show you is my Enderman farm, which is a design from Mortings. As I said in this episode, we only built this fairly recently, but it is just super helpful to have something like this in your world, giving you an easy access to tons of XP. Something I did ask you guys in the last episode was to give my Enderman killing sword here a name, and something I saw suggested quite a lot in the comments down below was something along the lines of Enderman Ender. I also saw Ender and a couple of other variants, but the Enderman Ender, it's perfect. The Enderman farms are quite often called Enders, right? And this sword does in fact end Enderman. So thank you to everybody who suggested something like Enderman Ender or any name suggestion for that fact. I always really appreciate you guys giving me lots of options for that sort of thing. So there we go, everybody. That is my world. So far, we're only just getting started, really. I think I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, but I plan to keep this world for a very long time. So, you know, when 1.19 comes out, I'm not going to reset or anything like that. I kind of want this world to be my forever world, or at least my for a very long time world. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed this world tour. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.